Have you ever just stopped to think about how a simple, round object sitting on a desk can literally represent our entire physical and even cultural world? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something that's probably sitting in a classroom near you. It's so familiar, yet honestly, deeply profound. We're talking about the globe. Okay, let's dive into this. The word globe actually comes from the Latin word globus, which just means a round mass or sphere. Simple enough, right? But in geographical terms, it's a three-dimensional scale model of the Earth. It's not just a ball, it is a miniaturized, incredibly accurate version of our reality. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the anatomy of a globe, take a spin through history, weigh in on globes versus flat maps, shift gears to see how all the world's a stage, and then wrap things up with the enduring modern globe. Section 1. Anatomy of a globe. The physical breakdown of our 3D world. So how exactly are these perfect spheres constructed? It's kind of like a giant puzzle. Mass-produced globes are traditionally covered by a printed paper map. First, the map is printed on these long, thin paper strips called gores. Then, those gores narrow down to a fine point at both the north and south poles. By using these multiple, really thin strips, globe makers basically eliminate the stretching and crumpling that happens if you try to wrap a flat piece of paper around a sphere. Finally, a small paper disc is placed right over the poles to smoothly cover up any tiny irregularities where all those strips meet. It's a pretty ingenious bit of geometry, honestly. Now, notice that specific number, 23.5. If you've ever looked closely at a standard terrestrial globe, you probably noticed it isn't mounted straight up and down. It's actually tilted at exactly a 23.5-degree angle on its bearings. And no, that isn't just some weird design quirk. It brilliantly replicates the Earth's actual axial tilt relative to the sun. So just by giving a tilted globe a quick spin, you can instantly visualize exactly why our days turn to nights and how we experience the changing seasons. And to help us navigate this 3D sphere, geographers use an imaginary grid. You've got latitudes, which are the lines measuring distance north or south of the equator, and then you have longitudes, measuring distance east or west of the prime meridian. They intersect at perfect right angles to form a location grid, which lets us pinpoint absolutely any exact spot on the planet. Moving on to Section 2, a spin through history, mapping our evolving worldview. You know, globes are essentially historical snapshots of how we viewed the world at any given time. Starting way back around 1500 BC, the Greek philosopher Crates of Malis created the very first known terrestrial globe. Fast forward to the 9th century AD, Muslim geographers under Al-Mamun crafted these highly detailed globes of the Old World. Then, in 1492, a German navigator named Martin Behem designed the oldest terrestrial globe that still survives today. And just 15 years later, in 1507, Martin Waldseemüller created a globe that for the very first time actually showed the Americas. Speaking of the Americas, Martin Behem's 1492 globe, which was famously called the Erdapple, or Earth Apple, completely lacked them. It was crafted right before Christopher Columbus set sail. So the absolute oldest surviving terrestrial globe we have perfectly preserves a pre-Columbian worldview. It is literally missing half of the planet. It's just a fantastic reminder of how our collective human knowledge is constantly expanding. Section 3. Globes versus flat maps. The classic 3D versus 2D debate. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is the contrast between these two tools. On one hand, flat 2D maps are incredibly portable. You can fold them up for a road trip, pull them up on your phone, and they're absolutely perfect for specific local regions. But maps inherently distort shapes, sizes, and distances because, well, you're trying to stretch a round sphere onto a completely flat plane. On the other hand, globes are bulky. You definitely can't carry one around in your pocket. However, because they're 3D, they show true shapes, accurate scale, and represent the whole planet without those massive visual distortions. So if you want the real truth of our planetary geography, you absolutely have to look at the globe. Section 4. All the world's a stage. The globe as a cultural metaphor. Okay, let's pivot here a bit. In 1598, William Shakespeare's acting company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men, faced a massive crisis. Their landlord threatened to tear down their playhouse, which was simply called the theater. But here's the catch. They owned the timber, just not the land it sat on. So what did they do? The actors literally dismantled the building, timber by timber, loaded those massive wooden beams onto barges, and ferried the whole shebang right across the River Thames to a marshy site in Southwark. They bodily carried their world on their backs to build a brand new stage. And when they rebuilt this massive 20-sided 3,000-capacity theater, they raised a flag featuring Hercules carrying the geographic globe on his back. Right above it flew the Latin motto, Totus Mundus Agit Histrionum, which translates beautifully to all the world's a playhouse. Naturally, they named their new stage the Globe Theater. It's just amazing how, in this moment, the physical model of our Earth became the ultimate metaphor for human storytelling. Let's trace the incredibly dramatic rise, fall, and rebirth of this iconic building. In 1599, the new Globe Theater opened its doors, hosting masterpieces like Hamlet and Macbeth. But then, in 1613, disaster struck. During a performance of Henry VIII, a theatrical cannon was fired to announce the king's arrival, and it set the thatched roof on fire. No way, right? The entire globe burned to the ground in under an hour. It was quickly rebuilt, but then Parliament permanently ordered the closure of London theaters in 1642. For centuries, it seemed the globe was lost forever. But fast forward to 1997, and thanks to the decades-long dream of American actor Samuel Wanamaker, a fully reconstructed Globe Theater opened just one street away from the original site. Section 5. The Enduring Modern Globe. Connecting the physical and theatrical. So the crucial point here is that both the geographical object and the reconstructed theater remain incredibly vital to us today. The physical globe provides this 3D spatial awareness and true geographic scale that flat maps just cannot match. It acts as an interactive, totally hands-on educational tool. Meanwhile, historical globes preserve our past worldviews and major cultural milestones. Whether it's an antique spinning on your desk or Shakespeare's famous wooden O in London, the globe functions as this living, breathing monument to human curiosity, connection, and storytelling. Which brings us to a final provocative thought. Whether you're looking at a geographical model, plotting out our vast oceans and continents, or staring at a theatrical stage where intense human dramas unfold, how does the globe you view shape your understanding of the world? It's just a really powerful reminder that our perspectives and the models we use to build them truly define our reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring your world.